Genetic drift and patterns of macroevolution. Genetic drift. Genetic drift happens when the allelic frequencies in a population change due to chance. The smaller the population is, the greater the impact of genetic drift. With a small population, it might only take a few generations before they are all the same color, in the example shown down here. Genetic drift thus tends to eliminate variation more quickly in small populations. Large populations will tend to have greater genetic diversity. So as we can see in the original population, it's half red alleles, half blue alleles, and then there's just a small chance that we have more blue ones, and then over time, just that blue allele becomes more common until just the red is totally gone. This would be less likely to happen in a larger population as versus a smaller one. Bottleneck Effect. The bottleneck effect is a type of genetic drift that occurs when most of the population is killed off due to a chance event such as a fire, flood, volcano, or earthquake. As a result, all of the alleles carried by these individuals are lost. Because there are so few individuals left, there is a decreased genetic variability. Once alleles are lost in a population, it is extremely difficult to get them back. No matter how many times these individuals mate in different combinations with one another, they will not gain genetic diversity. Founder Effect. The founder effect is a type of genetic drift that occurs when a very small group of individuals populate a new area. They form a new group and are called the founders of the new population. So in this example, we have a population of red and green alleles, and a small group is taken from the ancestral population, and they are now the founders. And originally it started off with more green alleles than red, but over a few generations, for some reason, the red allele is favored more, and so over a couple generations, the two populations are almost totally different. We have the ancestral population with a mix of phenotypes, and then the founder population just looks totally different because there's all red alleles there and no green. Importance of genetic variation. What if a population lost all its genetic variation? This means they only have one form of every gene. No matter how many times their chromosomes cross over in meiosis, they will not gain the other alleles back. At this point, a population is in extreme danger of extinction. If organisms in a population are all alike, they can only be chosen for or against every time the environment changes. It is probable that there will come a time when all of them will be chosen against, and then they will all die all at once, without any individuals with some variation to survive and pass on those traits to a new generation of offspring. Cheetahs in Africa, an example of a homozygous population. Cheetahs used to be widespread throughout Asia and Africa, but have been driven out by their habitats by human expansion and overhunting. Conservationists now estimate only about 7,000 cheetahs remain in Africa today, and 50 in Asia. Genetic drift and homozygosity. Because most of the cheetah population has been killed off, the population has experienced genetic drift, more specifically a bottleneck effect. Zoos have breeding programs where they return cheetahs to the wild. Unfortunately, both the wild cheetah and the zoo populations are nearly identically homozygous. The cheetahs have only one form of almost all of their genes. The only hope. Random mutations. Mutations are needed to develop different alleles for the cheetah's genes. But the mutation rate for animals and plants is extremely low. The cheetahs would die off before these mutations could occur. Extinction. The founder effect and the bottleneck effect lead to reduced genetic variation within a population that can make a species less able to adapt to changing environments, and therefore less likely to survive and reproduce. Scientists estimate that over 99% of all species that have ever existed are now extinct. Some of the organisms shown below may have become extinct due to natural causes, but one particular example, the Labrador duck, this duck was already rare before European settlers came to the Americas, so because it was already a rare duck, there wasn't a whole lot of genetic variation there to help it survive, so whatever changes that could have been brought about due to the European settlers, this caused the duck to become extinct because it just couldn't adapt quickly enough. Extinction. Extinction can be caused by a variety of other factors, including meteor impact, climate change, predation, disease, competition, and degradation of habitat. Mass extinctions have occurred frequently throughout Earth's history, killing off multiple species at once. 5 mass extinctions have been recognized, and it has been proposed that we are in the middle of a 6th mass extinction, and perhaps starting a 7th.
A mass extinction involves the destruction of over 75% of the existing species due to a catastrophic incident like asteroid strike or volcanic eruptions or severe climate change. The time frame and some types of the organisms destroyed are listed. Ordovician Silurian, 440 million years ago, destroyed small marine organisms. Devonian, 365 million years ago, destroyed larger marine organisms. Permian Triassic, 250 million years ago, was the largest in history. Many species were destroyed, and it cleared the stage for the ancestors of the dinosaurs. The Triassic-Jurassic, 210 million years ago, destroyed marine life and some land-based insects and vertebrates. And the Cretaceous-Tertiary, 65 million years ago, destroyed the dinosaurs. Many scientists have proposed that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, called the Holocene epoch, which started 11,700 years ago and is related to the impact of human activity and population growth. The extinction rate is about 1,000 times what it would be without human impact. The extinction of many species of animal and plant life is attributed to human hunting and climate change. The extinction rate has increased during the 20th century, and some scientists are suggesting that this could be a new epoch, the Anthropocene epoch. Epoch means a geologic time segment with a distinctive characteristic.
Patterns of macroevolution. There are 4 types of macroevolution: adaptive radiation, divergent evolution, convergent evolution, and coevolution. Adaptive radiation. Adaptive radiation is the emergence of numerous species from a common ancestor. This generally occurs when organisms move to a distinctly new environment from the old one, or when there is a major change in the current environment. A good example of this is Darwin's finches. As we can see in this diagram, there are numerous species of finches that all evolved from a common ancestor that was originally from mainland Ecuador. Some members of the original population of finches on mainland Ecuador flew over to the Galapagos Islands, and they each started to adapt in their own distinct environment because each island had distinct environments from other islands. It's sort of like a founder effect on numerous islands in the Galapagos, which leads to the wide variety of finches that we have today on those islands. Divergent evolution. Adaptive radiation leads to divergent evolution, new species arising from another species. Divergent evolution can arise from disruptive selection. For instance, the small-winged butterflies and the large-winged butterflies tend to flourish, and the butterflies that have medium-sized wings do not flourish. These are the more intermediate trait, and the medium-winged butterflies were the common ancestors. So the common ancestor butterfly with the medium wings was an intermediate trait that was favored against, and then the large-winged butterflies and the small-winged butterflies flourished, and therefore we have 2 new species of butterflies. Convergent evolution. Convergent evolution is when different organisms, arising from different ancestors, have similar characteristics because they have adapted to similar environments. For example, the sugar glider and the flying squirrel have many similar characteristics even though they are not closely related. The sugar glider is a marsupial. In this animal, the fetus develops in the pouch, and the flying squirrel is a placental. In this animal, the fetuses develop in a womb. Coevolution. Coevolution is when an evolutionary adaptation in one species affects the evolution of another species. You can think of it as the 2 organisms evolving together. Coevolution requires the linkage of genetic change between the 2 species, such as between butterflies and flowers. The butterfly and flower are in a mutually beneficial relationship and have evolved complementary characteristics. In this case, the flower is brightly colored to attract the butterflies, and the butterflies have a siphoning mouthpart that fit exactly into the nectaries of the flower, to collect the nectar and inadvertently the pollen, allowing the flowers to be pollinated.